Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to this week's cheat sheet previewing the 1-3 Pittsburgh Steelers against the 3-1 Buffalo Bills. Game being played Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern time at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York, the home of the Buffalo Bills. And man, we've got some injury updates and things for you if you want a little more on some keys to the game and some other things to look for as far as some more in-depth analysis. Please check out the show that aired yesterday here on all of our platforms, and we'll dig right down into this. There's a lot of injury updates, some areas in which you can keep updated with the game, as well as some other quick hit type notes. And getting right to it, the Pittsburgh Steelers finally releasing an updated injury report of who's in, who's out. Got a couple questionable players, but looking a little bit better on the Steelers side of things than it did even just recording yesterday. Deontay Johnson today on Friday, full practice participant, as was cornerback Levi Wallace, Minkah Fitzpatrick, as well as Chris Wormley and Cam Hayward. So the Steelers looking to be a little bit better shape here. Cam Sutton, speaking with reporters, said he expects to play on Sunday. Ahkello Witherspoon, as we had already surmised earlier this week, he was already ruled out by Mike Tomlin in his Tuesday press conference, and Terrell Edmunds is still in the concussion protocol, so he is also questionable along with Cam Sutton. So only one player definitively out at this point, and that is Ahkello Witherspoon, and the Steelers are going to need all hands on deck in their secondary, so hopefully you could see if Edmunds is able to play. If he isn't, next man up would be Trey Norwood, who has been practicing in both Minkah Fitzpatrick and Terrell Edmunds spots throughout this week. On the Buffalo Bills side of things, though, it gets a little hairy, and let me try and pull it up and make sure I don't crash the internet by doing so. But there is just a laundry list. I wish I should count. There's over a dozen players on this. So if you happen to be on YouTube, you could just kind of scroll this in. And just joking with a former colleague online, we were stating that some of the over-under yardage for Kenny Pickett this week might be a good bet to take. So don't forget to go to bit.ly/BUSR-Steel City and get your new member bonus as well. Get your money in on that. So Christian Benford, who has been playing as one of the starting corners, and actually Benford isn't even like the guy. Bedford is supposed to be Tre'Davious White, and of course, Kaiir Elam was their first-round pick this season, and the Buffalo Bills just keep losing. Guys keep dropping like flies in this secondary and on this team, and Micah Hyde's already on injured reserve. And Elam actually wasn't like the first choice. He's kind of listed as a co-starter on the Buffalo Bills depth chart, which actually I'm going to switch over to that real quick. So the first round pick, I believe, if we go over to Benford, I think Benford was drafted in the 6th round of this year. So also a rookie, but he's out. So inconsequential, as is probably one of the best safety duos in the National Football League between Jordan Poyer, who's been playing very well, and Micah Hyde. And this started just a couple of weeks ago, and now Poyer is on the shelf as well for this game. The Tre'Davious White has been physically unable to perform to date as well. And so they've got Dane Jackson, who's been taking a lot of snaps here. He was a 7th round pick a couple of years ago by the Bills. And the rookie Kaiir Elam will be in there as well. They tried to sign Xavier Rhodes over to their practice squad, and that didn't turn out too hot either for the Bills. So they're down they were already down White, obviously, and then they've been trying to recoup without having Hyde, and now they're down Poyer, and they're down Benford as well. They're just kind of ravaged, and if you kind of remember, Elam and Benford are part of this list to begin with because the Steelers went and signed Levi Wallace, who the Bills tremendously valued in the place of Tre'Davious White, who is one of the top flight corners in the National Football League. So to be without all of those players, that might behoove those of you who want to take the over on the Kenny Pickett yards, which I think it was like set at like 202.5 or something. Just a little over 200, which we've seen Mitchell Trubisky struggle to get there, but he's been close. He's been close. And just think about maybe how more electric the Steelers offense could be. But of course, they're going to have to slow down that Buffalo Bills offense that's going to be without Dawson Knox as well. So when we jump back over to the Buffalo Bills injury report, it looks like Jamison Crowder is also out for this game, and they're expecting to make a move to place him on injured reserve. Gabe Davis, who kind of came out of last week with an ankle injury. Game status is unspecified, but he was a full participant in practice all week, so you could probably expect him to play. Questionable with a hamstring is Terrell Edmonds' brother, who plays for the Bills, Tremaine Edmonds, twins, by the way, and he's a DNP for the whole week. So I don't know. They might be without their starting middle linebacker. Daquan Jones it's just unspecified veteran rest. That's probably like the only one on this list. As you can see, it just scrolls. It just keeps going forever and ever. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 players. Now, a couple of these are veteran rest players. So it's like, but 15, 16 players on your injury report to keep track of is always interesting. Dawson Knox, as I mentioned, is out. Jay Kumaro also out, wide receiver, kind of more special teams type guy, because they still have Isaiah McKenzie, of course, Stephon Diggs being the centerpiece there, Gabe Davis, an ascending player in the NFL, and Khalil Shakir, a guy that we were looking at in the draft process, actually a nice player. So we'll see how that turns out. Actually, McKenzie was on this list too in concussion protocol after not practicing the first day, limited twice. Cam Lewis, one of those other corners, one of the other DBs they may have available for this game, full participant. Let's see. I'm trying not to lose sight of what's going on. Von Miller showed up as a DNP, but it might just be veteran rest still. It was unspecified. He was veteran rest earlier in the week. Mitch Morse also practiced starting center. Justin Murray, an offensive tackle, was a full participant after being limited early. Ed Oliver has been limited the entire week and is questionable, as is another defensive tackle, Jordan Phillips. And, of course, as we mentioned, Jordan Poyer with his ribs already ruled out. The other two players on the list that showed up with veteran rest, Roger Saffold, and then Stephon Diggs did not practice today. He also got one of the perks for being a veteran player, and he is. We'll go through some of the numbers here as I continue through rattling off some of the facts, some of the things to look forward to in this game. And that just is just a ravaged secondary all along. And, of course, you know, I'm not going to sit here in this chair and say if they're down some of those horses up front, like Von Miller or Ed Oliver, I'm not going to shed a tear. Sorry, Buffalo. Sorry, Bills Mafia. Respect you a hell of a lot, but, it is what it is. You know what I mean? The Steelers are in need of a victory here. They're sitting at 1-3. We know this might not be the get-right game. They are 14-point underdogs, and it just doesn't seem like anything's going right for them. But at the same time, I think Buffalo is a team that can be beaten. I had made some comparisons with last week's game against the Baltimore Ravens that they gutted out 23-20, but Baltimore largely held them in check. And Baltimore has not by any means had an explosive defense, as they're trying to find themselves. They're still kind of in the shambles that they were last year. Even with all the injuries, they haven't quite gotten to where they need to be, despite getting some players back from injury healthy, and of course some of the rookies such as Kyle Hamilton. So I know it's not a Ravens preview, but just if you're going to make that apples oranges type comparison, Steelers might be able to slugfest in here. I know the defense hasn't looked necessarily its greatest, and they are down TJ Watt, which is down quite a bit, according to, if you believe in any type of like curses or streaks here. But the Steelers, just traditionally, the all-time, they are 17-11 against the Buffalo Bills. They won the last matchup last year's opening week of the season up in Buffalo, and they lead. They lead at home, which is inconsequential here. The Bills lead by 1 game, 8 wins to 7 losses in their own building. And the Bills have won 2 of the last 3 because, of course, you go back to the Devlin Duck Hodges game as well. If you want to go back a little further, Mike Tomlin had said, hey, this is starting to look like a divisional game. There are these opponent where they know each other just so well. And that could be, that's very true. They play each other just so much, and they may even end up facing each other in the postseason at some point, just based on where these teams end up traditionally. That's if the Steelers can make a run here and beat the rest of the AFC North, but it doesn't look like anybody else wants to take it just yet. Just looking at the coaches, of course, Mike Tomlin with last week's loss, all-time now 155 wins to 88 losses and 2 ties in his 16th year with Pittsburgh. And Sean McDermott, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, 52-33 in his 6th year. He is 2-1 against the Steelers, whereas Mike Tomlin overall against the opponent 5-2, but again over 16 seasons. So more recent history with Sean McDermott, right? The game, of course, being played in New York. This is a natural grass surface. It will be aired on CBS and or Paramount Plus, and or if you're in local area, continue to quit. I don't mention it, but a streaming option for anyone to catch your local broadcast would be NFL Plus. So you could sign up and check it out there. Of course, there's all of the local affiliates. You could look for that Saturday morning on steelcityunderground.com, everywhere where this game may be aired or where you can listen to on the radio. I'll catch a little bit of that in a moment. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson is your crew with the CBS team. And just to look at this map, everything that's in red, if you could see it here or go check it out on the website, it's steelcityunderground.com. Unless you're in most of Ohio, even my stomping grounds and hometown in Northeast Ohio is going to get the Steelers and Buffalo Bills. So whatever's in red here, it goes up through the Northeast. Just misses kind of like New England and some of the areas, Baltimore, the Delmarva area, down through the Carolinas, Tennessee, and everything else. But the entire Midwest, I mean, your Tornado Alley out to the Rockies is pretty much getting this game unless there's a West Coast team in that area instead. So the Steelers are overwhelming the A game this week against the Buffalo Bills. More than likely, if you have an antenna set up and you don't have another team in your immediate area, you're going to grab this game. So, of course, the flagship station out of Pittsburgh, Channel 2 KDKA. Satellite radio, the Steelers are on Sirius, Channel 82, on the XM and the app on 227, which is typical, especially in this slot, and internet 803. And you could check out the Bills on 134, 385, or 826, respectively. That's Steelers Nation Radio Network, of course, Bill Hillgrove, and the flagship station, if you happen to be in the whereabouts of the Pittsburgh area. Where am I at here? WDVE 102.5 or WBGG AM 970. So I was trying to remember the call signs for that. I drew a blank there for a second, so I apologize. It's also available nationally on Sports USA, and your referee is John Hussey, who... This guy takes a month of Sundays to huddle with his crew, even if it's like a false start penalty. So just hold on to your seats, folks. This game could go to 4:30 or 4:45, and hopefully there isn't another one that takes over for it in its place. Of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the big buzz is Kenny Pickett, the Steelers rookie, making his debut after being inserted into the game after halftime into the third quarter last week for Mitchell Trubisky, formerly of the Buffalo Bills. So you don't get a revenge game here, unfortunately. But as mentioned on the numbers, the Steelers are a plus 14. Depending on where you see the line, the over-under is 47, and the money line is plus 610 for the Steelers and minus 890 if you're looking for the Bills, which would be... Some people are edging towards Bills, but then the under. Some people are looking at the under. They just aren't respecting the Steelers' offense to be able to generate any points or yardage. So keep that in mind with how confident you feel. Of course, that 14 points is the largest deficit that the Steelers have had ever, odds-wise, since like 1970, modern era NFL. It's really something that's a little more mind-blowing than usual. Steelers come into this game, of course, having lost last week to the New York Jets, 24-20. And the Buffalo Bills won 23-20 on the road at Baltimore. Points for the Steelers offense, 18.5. The Bills have 10 more at 28.5. They've been very dynamic thus far. Steelers offense, 278.8 yards to the Bills, 412. Kenny Pickett last week was 10-13 for 120 yards passing. He did have the 3 interceptions for a 65.1 quarterback rating. Josh Allen to date is 113 of 168 for 1,227 yards, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a 101 quarterback rating. Najee Harris leads the Steelers with 202 yards rushing. That's 3.5 per carry, where Josh Allen is the leading rusher with fewer yards, 183, but 6.1 on average. He has 2 rushing touchdowns on the season as well. Pat Freiermuth leads the Steelers with 223 yards on 18 receptions. Stephon Diggs, 31 catches, 406 yards for the Buffalo Bills. Points against, the Steelers are relinquishing 22.5 on average to date. The Buffalo Bills have only given up 14.5. So this game could be a lot closer than you'd think, but the Steelers got to buckle up, tighten up, giving up yards, 383 yards per game to Buffalo Bills, 234.5. Alex Highsmith leads the Pittsburgh Steelers in sacks, 5.5 to Greg Rousseau of the Buffalo Bills is 4. Jordan Poyer has 4 interceptions to Micah Fitzpatrick's 3, but Poyer, as mentioned earlier, ruled out of this game with an injury. And then in the takeaway giveaway department, the Steelers are now +1, and believe it or not, the Bills are +2. So 8-7 and 9-7. Very interesting to see that. We could go through some kicker stats, but all you need to know is that Tyler Bass has completed 13 of 13 point after tries, and Chris Boswell has only had 6 of those so far. He has nailed all of them, but only 6, almost half. Buffalo Bills have not punted, but I think like 7 times in 4 games. So it gives you an idea of their offense. Can the Steelers slow them down? Again, check out the other episode that we just had. Some of the weapons they may have at their disposal in order to defeat the Bills. Deontay Johnson, he had a touchdown in their last meeting. He's looking for his 10th in a row game on the road with 5+ catches and 50+ receiving yards. So we'll see if Kenny Pickett can find him. George Pickens led the team last week with career highs so far in catches, 6, and receiving yards, 102 against the Jets. Pat Freiermuth had 7 catches and a career high of 85 yards last week also, and also looking for 50+ receiving yards for another 2 of his past 3 on the road. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, let's see here. Micah Fitzpatrick tied for a team lead with 8 tackles last week, and he is one of 3 in the NFL along with Eddie Jackson and the aforementioned Jordan Poyer with an interception in 3 games this season. So put his face back up there where it belongs on the screen. He had 10 tackles in the last meeting between these 2 teams, and he has a pass deflection in 6 of his past 7 on the road. Cam Sutton, who's optimistic to play, had his 2nd interception of the season against the Jets. So another one to look for. Alex Highsmith, again, ranks 2nd in the NFL now with 5.5 sacks this season. Aims for his 3rd in a row on the road with 2+ tackles for loss and a 3rd game in a row with a sack. And we go over to the Bills. Josh Allen, and he had last week 213 yards passing, so he was somewhat limited. He had a touchdown and an interception, season high 70 rush yards and a rushing TD. So he has over 45 rushing yards or more in 3 of his 4 games this season. So the Steelers definitely, they're going to have to keep an eye on Allen and try and keep him contained, because if they can't, it could be very much so a very long day in the office for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their defense. And we know how that has gone. I talked about some of my keys to the game. Devin Singletary, not necessarily the most dynamic running back in the league, but he did have 96 scrimmage yards last week, and he's looking for a 3rd straight game in a row with 90+ scrimmage yards. His 72, he rushed for 72 yards in last year's meeting, but again, he's not even a 200-yard rusher. So when you look at Najee Harris and what he's been able to do this year, and you're going to say not a whole lot, Devin Singletary is not quite there. Either his backup, Zach Moss, not quite there also. But Stephon Diggs is 2nd in the NFL with 406 receiving yards. And he's one of 3 receivers so far this year with 60+ receiving yards in each of the first 4 weeks, joining A.J. Brown and Christian Kirk, respectively. Isaiah McKenzie had his 10th career TD catch last week. He's one of 2 AFC wide receivers combined with Devontae Adams here with a receiving TD in 3 games this season. You probably wouldn't have thought that out of Isaiah McKenzie. Then Von Miller had his 3rd sack of the season last week. Matt Milano, a very fine linebacker, tied his career high with 13 tackles and 2 tackles for loss last week against the Ravens. He also has pass deflections in 2 of his past 3 games. Tremaine Edmonds, should he play, was also a tackling machine, had 2 for a loss last week and in 2 of his last 3. And Greg Russo, who I said is the leading sacker. I don't like that word, sacker, but he is the leading the sacks leader. Why don't we call him that? Sacks leader for the Buffalo Bills. He's looking for his 5th straight game in a row with at least a half sack, at least getting to that quarterback. So, folks, that'll do it for me here. 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in the Buffalo area, Highmark Stadium. Pittsburgh Steelers, 1-3. They're a dog to a 3-1 Buffalo Bills team that's currently sitting in a wild card spot. Should the season end today? You know how I dislike that. Let's get to about halfway before we discuss those sorts of things. So check out the previous show if you have a chance. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave your feedback where you can, leave your comments where you can. We always try and catch those when we can. And we'll just have to see if the Steelers can maintain or fight fire with fire, basically. This game might be, because just of the lack of participants available with both teams on the defensive side of the ball, this could end up in a situation, even more so. Let's say the Bills get out to like a 2-score type of lead in this game. And that might open up things for Kenny Pickett a little more. You might see more of a shootout aspect. Will they get up to that 47 over and under? I don't know. That's not the one I was looking for, but I was looking for Kenny Pickett on the over under on the yards. And I think I was also looking at the first half over and under at like 23.5. That was a pretty interesting one. Steelers with 14 points. This is pro football, man. It's hard to not take a team, but I mean, it's not quite Ohio State. And was it like Toledo with 40 points or something like that? And Georgia had somebody that was a big dog against them too. And it's like, you know, sometimes take the points there. You know what I mean? So good luck to all of you if you are going over to BUSR. And don't forget that promo code Steel City as well. Until next time, thank you folks for tuning in. Join us for our post game, probably again Monday morning, early afternoon. And until next time, my name's Joe Kuzma, and as I always close out these shows, I'd like to see everybody do well out there. So we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.